Hello you fine ladies and gentlemen, how are you all doing? Today we're going to be going over all the trait cards in Battlefront and figuring out which is the most beneficial to use. Now, in case you didn't know, traits give the player special perks on the battlefield and can be ranked up by getting kill streaks. And ranking up a trait either makes its perks more prominent or adds additional perks for the player. So let's begin with these first two traits, the Sharpshooter Trade and the Bodyguard trait. Now for the Sharpshooter trait, it's quite a simple one. Hitting headshots with your blaster will decrease all current cooldowns for your star cards. The next trait is the Bodyguard trait, which gives damage resistance towards explosions and at rank 3 grants a small resistance to blaster damage. Now depending on your playstyle, of course, these first two traits are probably the weakest of the 6 trait cards. Their perks they offer are just not as beneficial as the other traits. Which we'll get into now, starting with the Scout trait, which allows you to sprint without showing on the minimap. And at rank 2, it allows you to fire your blaster without showing on the minimap. And at rank 3, it resets your blaster cooldown on kills. Now, this is quite a popular trait, and for good reason. If you want to sneak around the map and flank the enemy, this is definitely a great choice. Being able to run behind the other team without them seeing you on the minimap is very powerful. And at that rank 3 perk, you can sneak up behind the enemy and take far more of them out before they even notice you are there. Now the next trait is the Bounty Hunter trait. I actually used this trait a lot when I was starting to play Battlefront, as it can really come in handy when facing multiple enemies at once. Pickups on the battlefield are of course very helpful, but they are sometimes hard to find, especially in the heat of battle where they may be most useful. Now the Bounty Hunter trait gives the player a chance to receive a random pickup like a thermal imploder or orbital strike with every kill. This chance increases with each rank of the trait. So if you really like using power-ups, then this is a good choice for your trait. However, overall, it's really not as beneficial as some of the others. Next, the Survivalist trait allows for faster health regeneration and at rank 3 allows the player to recover some health upon kills. Now, this trait can either be really good or not very useful at all, depending on how you play with it. Where this trait really excels is when you know you can win the majority of firefights that you encounter. I find it works well when I'm playing on a map that I'm familiar with and know which blasters are very proficient to handle the engagements presented on that map. That way I know that my blaster doesn't necessarily need a damage boost, as I can handle the engagements on that map, and I will benefit greatly from a perk that allows me to regenerate my health quickly so that I may jump back into the action sooner. Now on to the final trait card, the Berserker trait. This thing is a beast. The Berserker grants a damage boost to the player's blaster when they are under 76 health, and at rank 3 grants a 50% damage resistance. Now, as with many of these traits, it isn't suited to all maps and engagements. This trait, more than all the others, thrives on being ranked up. So if you're playing on a map where you're having trouble getting kill streaks, then this trait card will actually weaken the player, as if it's not up to rank 3, it essentially weakens the player or the user because it makes their health regeneration much slower. So now that we have covered all 6 trait cards, it is time to decide the verdict. Which one is the best? Well, it's really down to those last 4. The Scout perk, the Bounty Hunter, the Survivalist, and the Berserker. Now, the Bounty Hunter, although it is very powerful and a lot of fun to use because using those power-ups is a lot of fun, it really doesn't hold up against those other 3 trait cards, so that is probably not the best one to use. As for the Survivalist perk, although it can be really useful if you know the engagements and win the majority of your firefights, most of the time you're not going to be doing that well, and therefore the Survivalist trait is just not the best choice to use. Now the Scout perk is a phenomenal trait to use. You can really flank the enemy, come up behind them, and they won't even know you're there if you have it ranked up, and you can really go on some big kill streaks if they don't see you. However, the Berserker trait, as I said, is an absolute beast. Now, if you are playing on a certain map, or it's just one of those days where you're just not performing too well and you can't get up to Berserker rank 3 or even rank 2, this perk is probably not the one you want to use, as it does weaken the player if it's not up to that 50% damage resistance. However, if you do get it up to that 50% damage resistance, you are going to be an absolute menace on the battlefield, and it's going to be very hard for other characters, or players, sorry, to kill you. Plus, you're dealing insane damage, and I find using a blaster like the DLT-19, DH-17, or A280C, one of those blasters that fire a lot of shots and have a very high fire rate, are amazing for the Berserker trait, as you can really deal out a lot of damage and increase its range because you're of course dealing more damage at that range. So in the end, I would definitely say overall the Berserker trait is going to be the best choice, because it can turn you into a complete beast on the battlefield and you can start doing very, very well against all the other players. But if you don't think you can get it up to that rank 3, I would definitely go with the Scout perk, as it's just a really solid base perk and you don't even really need to level it up to reap its benefits. So that'll be all for today. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this useful. If you did, I'm glad. And as always, I will see you guys next time. Goodbye.